If I showed you these two watches side by side and asked you which one you would choose, I think most collectors would point to the version on the original white gold bracelet without thinking twice. After all, it's rarer, significantly more expensive, and considerably harder to replace, which in watch collecting usually means the decision should be straightforward. Once an original integrated white gold bracelet enters the conversation, most people stop asking questions before they have even tried the watch on. And the funny thing is that I probably would have agreed with that logic myself a few years ago. But after spending time with these two Piagets, reference 9127 side by side, wearing them, photographing them, switching back and forth between them, I became less certain, not more. It's the same white gold case, the same ultra-thin caliber 9P, it's the same black onyx dial, it's the same diamond set bezel. On paper, these watches are almost identical. And yet, the moment you put them on, they feel like two completely different objects. The version on the original bracelet feels almost like a piece of high jewelry that happens to tell the time, whereas the version on leather becomes one of the most elegant and understated dress watches the 1970s ever produced. And that is where this becomes more interesting than a simple review, because it raises a question almost every collector meets sooner or later. When the same watch exists in multiple configurations, should you always choose the rarer and more expensive option, or does the version that looks less impressive on paper deserve a much closer look than most people would give it? So to understand why these two are such a perfect example, we first need to talk briefly about Piaget itself. Because during the 1970s, the brand wasn't playing the same game as most of the Swiss watch industry. While Rolex focused on robust sports watches and Patek Philippe was redefining what a luxury sports watch could be, Piaget moved in a completely different direction, creating objects that sat somewhere between traditional watchmaking and high jewelry. This was the era of hardstone dials, hand-finished gold bracelets, and ultra-thin movements in cases that felt more like pieces of design than wristwatches. Piaget was competing just as much with jewelry houses like Cartier and Van Cleef and Arpels as with Rolex or Audemars Piguet. These watches were never meant to impress through specifications on paper. Their appeal comes from something harder to quantify: the way the proportions work together, the elegance of design, the feeling it creates once it is actually on the wrist. And nowhere is that more visible than in these two Piaget 9127s sitting side by side. So let's start with the bracelet version, because honestly, this is usually the one that captures attention first, and on paper, the obvious choice. The moment you pick it up, there's a sense of substance and craftsmanship. Not because the watch is oversized or loud, but because the bracelet and the case were clearly conceived as a single design. Nothing feels separate. The bracelet flows into the case. The case flows into the dial. And the entire watch feels less like a watch attached to a bracelet and more like one complete piece of design. In many ways, it reminds me of great furniture or great architecture, where every element feels connected to the next and nothing appears to have been added as an afterthought. What surprised me most, however, was not how luxurious it feels, but how modern it feels. On paper, this should feel like a very vintage object, a tiny 28 by 28 millimeter Piaget from the 1970s with a black onyx dial, diamonds around the bezel, and an ultra thin manual movement inside. That almost sounds delicate, yet on the wrist, those numbers begin to lose their meaning. The watch fits incredibly flat. The bracelet wraps around the wrist almost like fabric. And because its visual line continues seamlessly into the case, your eye stops focusing on the dimensions and starts seeing the entire object as one continuous shape. It wears with a confidence that many far larger modern watches struggle to achieve, because rather than occupying a small section of the wrist, it becomes part of the wrist itself. But then we arrive at the part almost nobody talks about with vintage watches on original precious metal bracelets. Because the bracelet introduces a set of considerations that simply don't exist with a leather strap. The most obvious one is, of course, fit. A leather strap can be adjusted within seconds, replaced whenever you like, and adapted to almost any wrist size. An integrated white gold bracelet, on the other hand, is a completely different story. If it happens to fit your wrist perfectly, it feels absolutely fantastic. If it doesn't, things can become surprisingly complicated very quickly. So let's say the bracelet is too short. Can additional links be sourced? Sometimes. Can a skilled goldsmith manufacture new ones? In certain cases, yes. But neither option is simple, neither is inexpensive. And both immediately raise a question that grows more important the deeper you get into vintage collecting: originality. Because the moment somebody starts modifying an original bracelet, collectors naturally begin asking questions. How much was changed? Was the work done correctly? Can it be reserved? And how will collectors feel about those modifications 20 years from now? These questions matter not because collectors are obsessed with perfection, since most accept that vintage watches require compromises, but because the bracelet here isn't an accessory you can swap out. It's a part of the original design, part of the rarity, part of what makes the watch desirable in first place. Every change you make to it becomes part of the watch's story going forward. Now let's talk about the leather strap version, because this is where the comparison became very interesting for me. Going in, I was convicted the bracelet version would be my favorite, and I didn't think it would be close. More gold, more rarity, more collectability, a much stronger presence on the wrist. On paper, it appeared to have every possible advantage. The reality, however, turned out to be far more complicated, because the moment you remove the integrated bracelet, your attention shifts toward the watch itself, and you start noticing things that weren't as obvious before. The deep black onyx dial becomes more prominent, the thinness of the case more apparent, the proportions taking center of the stage in a way they don't when the bracelet is competing for attention. What surprised me most was how calm the watch suddenly felt. Rather than constantly reminding you that you are wearing something rare or valuable, it settles into the background and becomes remarkably easy to live with. And I mean that as a compliment, because the longer I collect, the more I appreciate pieces that don't demand my attention. I caught myself reaching for the leather strap version far more often than I expected. Not because it was far more impressive, and certainly not because it was rarer, but because it felt effortless. It worked with almost everything. It disappeared comfortably under a cuff. And after a few minutes on the wrist, I often stopped thinking about it altogether. Now, before anyone misunderstands me, the bracelet version absolutely has more presence on the wrist. There's really no debate about that. It occupies more visual space and feels more substantial. Exactly what many collectors want from an integrated precious metal bracelet. What eventually became interesting to me, however, was realizing that presence and enjoyment are not necessarily the same thing. We talk about wrist presence as though it's automatically a positive quality. But after spending time with both of these Piagets, I found myself questioning that. The bracelet creates presence through continuity, because bracelet and case form one uninterrupted design. Your eye follows the shape across the entire wrist. The leather strap does the opposite, isolating the case and framing the design so your attention falls on the watch itself. And that's exactly why this comparison became so fascinating to me. Because after a few days of wearing both versions, I kept changing my mind. One moment I was convinced the bracelet version was the obvious winner. And next I was looking at the strap version, wondering whether I had underestimated it completely, which in my experience is usually a very good sign. Because truly great watches rarely reveals everything about themselves immediately. The best ones tend to leave you slightly undecided. From a pure collector's perspective, the bracelet version will almost always be the more important watch. Original precious metal bracelets are expensive to manufacture, and over the decades, many of them have been lost, damaged, or separated from their watches, which makes a complete example increasingly hard to find. The bracelet version will probably remain the rarer, more collectible, and in most cases, more valuable configuration. Simply the reality of the market. But what I find interesting though is that collectability and wearability are not always the same thing. A distinction collectors sometimes overlook. The watch that receives the most admiration at a collector's gathering is not necessarily the watch you will reach for on an ordinary Tuesday morning before leaving the house. Both of these Piagets are excellent. Both tell the same design story, and both represent the same period in Piaget's history. The only real difference is the way they choose to tell that story once they are on the wrist. And that brings us to the question you've probably waiting for since the beginning. If I could only keep one of these watches, which one would I choose? Honestly, I don't think there is a universally correct answer, because it depends entirely on what role the watch is meant to play in a collection. If my goal was to own the most complete and collectible version of the Piaget 9127, I wouldn't hesitate. The bracelet version. The integrated white gold bracelet is part of the original version and part of what makes these watches so special to collectors. Again, it's harder to find, harder to replace. Always the one that attracts the strongest interest. But if the question changes slightly, the answer becomes much less obvious. Because if you asked which version I would actually wear more often, which one I'd reach for on an ordinary day without thinking about it, the leather strap version becomes incredibly difficult to ignore. it still gives you everything that makes the Piaget 9127 so fascinating. But it represents those qualities in a way that feels a little more relaxed, a little more understated, and perhaps a little easier to live with over the long term. And perhaps that brings us to the real point of this comparison. Because for years, collectors assumed that more gold, greater rarity, and higher price automatically meant a better watch. But what these two Piagets remind me, however, is that collectability and enjoyment are not always the same thing. A watch can be rarer without being more enjoyable. It can be more valuable without creating a stronger connection. And sometimes the version that looks less exciting on paper ends up being the one that spends the most time on your wrist. That's why I like this comparison so much, because in the end, there isn't really a winner and there isn't really a loser. Instead, these two watches remind us that the best watch is not always the rarest one, the most expensive one, or even the one that other collectors would choose. Sometimes it's simply the one that fits your wrist, your habits, and your personality a little bit better. And after spending time with both of these Piagets, I think that's probably the only comparison that really matters. So that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video and hope to see you in the next one.